Be professional. Come on.
I don't want to. I don't want to be professional.
Dial it up. Gotta get myself
Ooh.
sorted here. I'm a complete mess this afternoon. Here we go.
Oh, I'm the same though. I woke up this morning. I'm like, I can't wait to go back to sleep tonight. Those are the vibes.
That is a good start to the day.
Did
Here's a new day. I'm ready for it to end.
Actually, even last night I'm like, I can't wait to fall asleep tomorrow night because I know I'm just gonna be exhausted tomorrow. Anyway, hi everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to episode 4.
Yeah, damn, number 4. All right. We've already passed like 90-something% of people who try to start podcasts and finish on 2 episodes. So yay us.
So far so good. I feel like after the second it just got better, or is getting better. I'm speaking as if we have like 100 episodes out.
We peaked. Yeah, no, it's good. I hope everyone's enjoying it so far.
I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun.
Same.
So
And
everyone
today
else is too.
is potentially, I was going to say not a fun topic, but depends on where you sit on emotional regulation. Maybe.
Emotions. I like this topic. I'm across it.
It's quite fun to talk about, but it's also super interesting to talk about. So hopefully some good stuff comes out of today.
Yeah. Well, we might I guess, talk about different. We probably won't be talking about strategies today, right? Maybe.
No, I reckon we'll save the strategies for next time.
Yeah.
Because we've got a little something for you for next time for the strategies. There's one very, very useful one for emotional regulation, but you got to wait until next episode. And we're going to run you through the actual exercise itself. So today's about the learning, and then next time will be about the application.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of emotions, did you watch the Matildas game last night?
Yeah, a little roller coaster.
Oh yeah. My God.
Yeah. No good.
Jeez. Yeah, that's like part of why I got to sleep so late last night.
Yeah, that's fair. It was good. It was a good game. And I think there was a couple of really unlucky moments.
I know that goal though.
That was elite.
Was insane.
Yeah,
literally insane.
She's so good. But yeah, it wasn't meant to be.
It's all right. It's okay. We played really well, in general. So,
but England are damn good. Like watching last night, I was like, okay, fair enough. Actually, a damn good team.
Yeah, so, hats off. I love how much coverage the women's soccer has been getting. It actually makes me so happy. And I see so many little girls, 3 to 5-year-olds, having their little jerseys on and screaming at the TV. And it just literally warms my heart. I'm like, it's something that you've never seen before. But even the guys are getting around it so much. I walked past a pub on Chapel Street. I think it was the Irish pub or something. And all the guys, all the blokes are just drinking beer, yelling at the TV, getting around it. It was so cool to see, because usually I thought, oh, is the footy on? And you walk past, it was the soccer. I was like, that's sick.
Damn, that's cool. It's been so cool to see how many people are just out and about from it as well. Just out in the streets, in the pubs, whatever. It's good. It's good for the space.
I love it. So let's get into emotions. Firstly, emotions. What is an emotion? Emotion is an intense burst of a physiological or behavioral response, reaction to a stimuli, I would say. And I guess some people ask, what's the difference between a mood and an emotion? A mood tends to last a lot longer and isn't as intense than an emotion. Yes,
I would say yes. Yeah, it's a very good question, because we tend to sort of conflate the two at times, or you sort of swap them, interchange them depending on what's happening in what situation.
Well, yeah, it depends. An emotion can be due to a certain mood, but I wouldn't say an emotion is a response to a mood at times. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if I'm in a bad mood, I will feel anger or irritability or whatever it might be, which we would call the emotion.
Mm-hmm. Towards something.
But I'm not angry or irritable because of my bad mood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's an influence of what the environment maybe or the context.
Yeah. And with an emotion, you usually can identify the trigger quite quickly and quite easily. It's clear. Whereas with a mood, it often takes a lot longer to establish what is causing that mood.
Mm. Would you say, I would say also sometimes you can't even identify why you might be in a particular mood.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Like,
you wake up, you're like, why do I just feel sad today? There's no, like, literally no reason. Why do I feel sad?
Yep.
I'm sad. I've felt sad for days and nothing's going on. I just feel sad.
And you'd probably unravel yourself trying to figure out why you were feeling that way if there was no specific reason that you could point to, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you start thinking, overthinking.
Yeah. And then we get into
all
a
the
bad
fun
space.
Stuff.
Yeah. So emotion is, would you say emotion's acute? So it's like
Yes.
short term. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Comes on, can be quite intense, but doesn't actually last that long. Whereas a mood is longer.
Mood is a lot more longer. And with emotions, because they're so abrupt and quick, that's when you need like emotional regulation strategies. Whereas with a mood that lasts a lot longer, it's not as intense. We often don't need to regulate our emotions so quickly in that environment.
Good point. So the emotional regulation strategies that you would use for exactly that, for emotional regulation, are not going to be that useful or helpful for a mood.
Exactly. Because you could be in a mood in your own room and you're allowed to like not feel, you're allowed to not regulate your emotions when you're alone or with someone you're comfortable with. Like that's okay too. So, but if you're in the middle of some sort of performance and you have an emotional reaction to something, you have to be able to regulate your emotions in that environment.
Actually, this is a good point. It made me think of last night's game where after Sam Kerr kicked that goal and everyone kind of got up and about and everyone was like, the crowd were going crazy. Did you see she was actually like doing this, sort of inferring to the team, like, hey, calm down, just take the edge off a little bit, because everyone was getting a little bit too heightened with it. I don't know if she was talking to just the team or everyone or the crowd or what, but yeah, exactly that though. Emotions really, really high. So it's like, what do we do? Implement some sort of strategy. And they would have talked about it pre-game or whatever else over probably months and years and experience-wise. What do we do if we get too heightened?
Yeah.
Calm.
Yeah. Because you don't want to celebrate too soon as well. Because like there's a whole range of emotions that we experience, whether they're positive or negative emotions. They all impact performance in different ways.
When could emotions be useful though? Because if I got too worked up, I'll use my own example again. If I was before a race, I had to be at a certain level of like energized. If I got over energized and into like an anxious space, then then there was a whole series of emotions that came with that as well. And that was helpful to a point, but then it became not so helpful depending on how far it went.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, even though we say positive and negative emotions, the positives being happy, excited, negatives being sad, angry, for instance, they intertwine. Like, it doesn't mean, just because they're negative emotions, they're going to impact your performance negatively. This is where we go into helpful and unhelpful emotions. So anger can actually, even though it's a negative emotion, it can actually be helpful towards your performance if you use it in a helpful way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a good point. So the emotion itself, whether it's, I suppose, seen as good or bad, doesn't actually dictate what is going to happen on the other side of that. So
yeah, exactly. So with your example of the soccer last night, where they're like getting really heightened and excited and happy, like that is a positive emotion. However, them being so heightened can negatively impact. So it can be unhelpful towards their performance. So by saying like it can impact their performance, it may, I guess they may lack the focus or attention towards the goal or the task of the game.
Yeah, awesome. Good points. You've like full rattled me with my mind's just going everywhere right now. This is great.
Are you thinking about your own like performance in when you were swimmer?
Yeah, a bit.
Like what works for you? Did you use any negative emotions that kind of helped you through?
Like definitely through certain races and stuff. Absolutely. Like, because there's always that competitive side, and as you're sort of going through the heats and things like that, when it gets closer to your heat, you're watching your direct sort of competitors. The people that, I don't know if other competitors do this, but I know Michael Jordan did this for a little while. I didn't know that at the time, but you have like secret enemies that you compete against directly, and every meet that you're at, because you're very close in sort of performance wise and times and things like that, and you're watching it. And you're watching them have their race and seeing how they're performing and all the rest of that. And that can affect your emotions. Absolutely. If your direct competitor is in the heat before you, for example, and they swim really well and you see that, whew, that can be positive or negative depending on what's going on. Helpful or unhelpful. So, but at the same time, if they don't swim all that well, that can fill you with like false confidence.
Yep.
Where you're behind the blocks, you're like, yeah, I got this, I'm going to smash it. And then you can swim even worse after that. And it's like, ooh, that stings. So yeah, there was a bit of that. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. And in your kind of like, just with performance in general, like there's the pre-performance emotions, like trying to manage those. There's the during performance emotions that you have to try and manage, and post-performance. But it's even harder when you lose and then you have to perform the next day or the next week, and you have to try and get yourself back up. So it's like managing a whole bunch of emotions at different times, and each strategy is going to be different for each one of those.
Yeah. And from a personal standpoint, so like swimming was a little different in that sense, because if you didn't swim well, you didn't really move on to the next stage. So swimming, you got heats, and then most of the time semifinals, and then finals. And finals is top 8. So there were times where I would have trained 6, 7, 8, 9 months straight for one race, and then not even made the top 16. And it was like, so the post-event emotions after that they're really tough, because it was like, shit, what was the point of the last 9 months? Yeah. And you go like really quickly into a bit of a dive. It's playing all woozy, but very quickly into a dive where it's like, what am I doing? What am I doing with all of this? Because it was just a massive waste of time. Luckily, support systems and stuff around me were really positive and helpful, and they understood. So managed to get out of it. But yeah, it's a good thing to highlight, that pre, during, and then post as well. I personally found the post emotions the hardest, whether they were good or bad, because they're very intense.
Did it ever make you want to like quit swimming because you're like, I'm not gonna do next season? Like this is too hard.
I never wanted to quit if things hadn't gone well. It was where there wasn't much going on at the time. So like middle of winter, freezing cold, and you're getting up at 4:15 in the morning to jump into a cold pool. That tests the patience. And then the commitment is 4 or 5 months away. It's like, man, really? Maybe I'll just have the rest of winter off and pick it back up somewhere else. But, yeah.
No, that's really interesting, because that level of commitment, even through the pain of waking up early, jumping in the pool, like you're putting yourself through so much pain. So when you don't get what you want at the end, I can imagine you can spiral quite quickly. So how did you kind of come out of that?
Well, there's a lot of periods, depending on sort of what year we're talking about. There was a lot of time invested in reflecting on what needed to be improved, really. And a really sort of harsh, it was almost like radical honesty about where I was actually sitting regarding my own commitment to the sport. to how committed I was to training. Was I doing everything that I knew I should be doing, looking after myself, sleeping well, eating well, all the rest? And there was always times where it was like, I could probably do more here and more here and more here. And then you kind of blame yourself, and then you get a bit trapped in that sort of headspace as well, where it's like, why can't I just do the extra thing that I know I need to do? Yeah. And that was a hard part of it too, because there's always emotions attached to that. But would you call it emotions or mood in that point? Because some of those lasted for a little while.
I'd say a little bit of both. There was a mood with like attached emotions to it, depending on what you weren't succeeding at all. Because when you're thinking of like, I guess, let's say performance anxiety, that happens over quite a long time often. But then the emotions that surround that is you go to do a comp and something triggers you within that, and you can't do anything. You freeze or get really anxious. Would you say that?
Yeah, I would say that. I think my own sort of reflection on it was that the mood sort of impacted training throughout the season. So if I was
motivation,
sort of prone to a bit of it's like undiagnosed, self-diagnosed, but like sort of it's depression-esque. But there's especially through swimming stuff. So there were periods of time there where I was flat for like ages and ages. So you still go to training and you're still going through the motions, but you know you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or at the level that you know you should be doing it at. So then when the meet rolls around, you've got all that in the back of your mind as well. Of like, shit, I've actually felt horrible for the last 2-3 months. I know this is probably unlikely to be a really good performance, even though I really still want to perform. So, and then I think that's where the emotions would come in on the day. But like I told a story to a young client the other day who was experiencing a little bit of like conflict stuff. Yeah, bit uncomfortable with dealing with conflict. And there was a time where I was I can't remember what meet it was now. It was one of the nationals, but I went to the marshalling room before the race, and I'm in amongst just like all these. It was a 50 freestyle, so there's big guys everywhere and lots of testosterone and all the rest of it. And normally people sit down in the marshalling room and just kind of relax and chat and whatever else. I swear my memory is like 80% of the guys in there were standing up, and it was like a peacock contest. Like all the chests were out, everyone's trying to march their way through, and no one would move out of anyone else's way. So you had to physically sort of like bump and nudge your way through people to even get your name ticked off before the race. So you can imagine what happened to the emotions in that environment, and then having to do that just before the race. Like this is a few minutes beforehand.
That's intense. That's intense.
It was really fun. And I wasn't one of the bigger guys either, and it was still fun. So
I can imagine. For you anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. This just made me think of that.
I know like my emotions in my, like when I weightlift, when I go for a PB, often now I've used either anger to get a PB or happiness. It just depends what's going on. And sometimes anger doesn't always work. It actually can, I guess, for me anyway, when I'm going to lift really heavy and I have anger, I might push my body too far, which is a risk of injury. So that's a bit of like, that's the difference. Whereas when I'm happy, I'm like, I know my limits. But with anger, I push that a little bit further, which actually can be quite beneficial. Like I did that yesterday. I did like 6 reps of 120 kilo deadlifts. And
that's actually pretty damn heavy.
And like the whole gym knew about it, because obviously like they didn't have like a proper floor. So the weights were slamming, but hey, like, look, I don't want to hurt my back, so I'll always like be as careful as I can.
Fair.
But I used that anger. I had music blasting my ears, and I smashed them out. And before then, I was doing like 120 kilos for like maybe 3 or 4. Now, like I tried yesterday and it was 6. And I used that emotion. And then after that, because I hit that PB, I instantly got happy and excited. And it's like I wasn't angry anymore. So that's when you mean like that's where you can see like the short bursts of you're walking in the gym, you're angry, you lift really heavy, and then you're happy. And then I was fine the rest of the night. Emotional regulation cool. Is the gym, I guess.
Yeah, for some people. When you because it's like a pendulum swinging. So like how quickly did you shift from like was it instant where it was like you got the 6th rep out, you dropped the bar, and then all of a sudden you were just really happy?
Complete instant, yeah.
That's so cool.
It's like I just felt so proud in that moment. I was like, whoa, I'm a strong woman. Because I'm quite small. Like I'm very small. Like I'm 58 kilos and I'm lifting 120 kilos for 6. Form is really great. So like firstly, I just feel like a badass.
Yeah, it's a little flick of the hair.
Flick's hair doesn't care. So that's like a real proud moment. But there's been times when I've gone for a PB and I couldn't lift the weight off the ground at all. I'm like, okay, I've pushed. Like maybe this is too hard. And I went in really happy. I was like, yep. I already did like some visualization in my head of me lifting it. Like in my head, I already had it. I went to the gym. I chucked on 140 kilos for deadlifts, which was like 10 kilos higher than my other PB. But I was just feeling happy, and I was just like, do you know what? I feel like I can do one.
Let's load it up.
Let's load it up. And then I went for it. I was breathing. I was excited. I was like, I've got this. And then I go to lift it. Nothing. Nothing but I'm like, I stand back. Obviously, the gym is like full of people. I'm like, okay, it's fine. Like, who cares? All right. Like, I thought I could do it, but I can't. So let's lower it to 135. And I did 135 for 1 easily, which was great. I was like, okay, good. Maybe I went too high with the goals. I wasn't disappointed though, but I was like, oh, okay. And then I kind of had to like, you accept that, you know, maybe I aim too high. So I wouldn't let like any emotions like upset me or anything like that. So I was like, let's try for something more realistic. And then it was
right. Which is so this is quite important because what you're explaining here is like goal refinement. So which then ties into self-efficacy. So quick explanation, self-efficacy being you essentially are setting a standard for you to achieve something right on the limit of you knowing that you can achieve it. So an example I always give to people is like, if I told you to do 100 push-ups straight right now, would you be able to do it? And like, yeah, some people can, but for those people, I'd change it to 1,000. But most people like, no. But I'm like, okay, well, if I told you to drop and do 1, could you do that? And pretty much everyone says, well, yeah, that'd be easy. Then we find somewhere between 1 and 100 that would be a real challenge, but you could get to if you really push yourself. It sounds like 140 was maybe like 99 push-ups. but for some reason, 135 ended up being like 70 or 80.
Yeah. Like it seems like such a small difference anyway. But I did aim too high. I don't know why, but I was feeling like an intense emotion of like excitement and happiness. I was like, I can do it. Like, this is it. Like, I've had a great day. I've eaten well. I slept well. I can do it. And then yeah, you kind of have to hide the embarrassment of like everyone else looking at.
But this is what I like about the gym too, though, is because that happens, and a lot of people think the 100 people in here are all staring at me, and they can read my mind, and they know that I've just failed this thing that I set out to do.
Yeah.
But realistically, what are they looking at? What are they looking at really?
Well, they're looking at a beast.
Aside from you, there's a reason there's so many mirrors in the gym.
Yes, they're looking at themselves.
So people can look at themselves constantly. So when we're in there worried about, oh man, are they watching me? They know I'm embarrassed about that. I didn't get it up, whatever. They're probably thinking
they have their own demons in their head.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like, at least you tried. I wouldn't go try for that. I would, because a lot of people don't want to they don't want to fail in front of other people, or they'll get really upset, or but I just go in there, I'm like, oh, whatever.
Whatever. 140, load it up.
Just an easy 140.
Oh shit, that is heavy. So all right. So if we're talking about emotional regulation in, let's say, with a setback or failure or whatever we want to call it, how are we then going to kind of bounce back after a loss? Or
yeah. And this is a question that everyone asks, especially a lot of my clients. The first thing is like, how do I bounce back from a disappointment, from a sort of failure from a loss? I just can't keep it together. And that's when it kind of affects their mood as well. Like, because of that loss, they're not sure how to get themselves back up, because it just ruins their confidence, their motivation, their passion. Not everyone, but these are like extreme cases that it does.
So, because if we're, so we'll use your example again. So we set it out, didn't reach the desired goal or the expectation of the desired goal. So immediately there's some negative emotion attached to that.
Yeah.
Because all the positive emotion comes with achieving the goal that we set out to do. That's the dopamine reward circuit, right? So we do the thing and we succeed, great. And the brain goes, here you go, here's a bunch of happy stuff to make you do it again. Or want to seek to do that again.
Exactly. And in my mind, like, I had already won. So to fail at it, you're like, wow, this is kind of a punch in the face. And this is the case for many athletes, because you don't go into a game thinking you're going to lose. You should be prepared
you're
for
in trouble
it,
if that's the outcome focus is we're going to lose. That's probably a great way to start things.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think I just stood away from it and I just looked at it, and I was like, I let myself feel that, I guess, yucky feeling of, okay, I didn't get it. And then I'm like, okay, how do I solve this? How do I leave the gym feeling accomplished? And that's when my goals changed. And in that moment, I was like, okay, what's a realistic weight that I can lift that's still a PB? So I'm still progressing, because I'm not going to leave without progressing in some way. And then I lowered the weight and I was able to do it. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to work towards 140. And in a couple of months, I'll be able to get it. So it's just changing your mindset around it.
Yeah, I like that. It's the, like, that's that refinement that I mentioned earlier, but also just adding in, I didn't get it or I didn't do it. Yeah, you couldn't do it today, but it doesn't mean that you never will.
Exactly.
So, good way to approach it.
100%. Because, well, to be fair with me, I was like, I'll never be able to lift 100 because I'm so small.
Well.
So, and now I'm just
you're well past that.
Like, I'm well past that, and I guess knowing that I do have that ability and I can build strength no matter what size I am, because it has to do a lot with power as well, and I train really hard. You can do anything you set your mind to.
Ooh,
and
I like that.
That's what you got to keep telling yourself in order to bounce back. Keep training, keep motivating yourself, have that drive, accountability, commitment. A lot of it is in your mind. And that's where, like, the mental skills training is really, really helpful, because your body is one vessel of, like, actually doing it. But if your mindset behind it isn't there, you're not going to achieve what you want to achieve.
I like that. We're going to have to do a little pump up episode, I think. Live on that, like, positive reinforcement and performance and all that good stuff that people want to hear about. So that's probably not a bad place to leave us, actually, for today. Very brief introduction to emotions and emotional regulation. A little bit more sort of personal stories from both of us, which I like. So next week, we're going to give you the one tool. It's a very, very effective tool, and we'll run through literally step by step on how to do it. Very useful for reducing anxiety, panic, and anger as well. So look forward to that one. And because you can use that pretty much anywhere at any time. So it's one of my favorites.
So we're gonna guide you through it so you'll be able to do it during the podcast, which is great for pre and post performance. In general though, it's just such a good strategy to use.
Oh, it's unreal.
I talk about it all the time. So
not even in a performance setting. Like if you're just someone who experiences big emotions, this is going to be a handy one for you. So
exactly,
look forward 100%.
To it. Well, I love this topic so much. So
we'll circle back to it.
We always will. But
in podcast 140.
Oh yeah.
We'll revisit this. See what your deadlift up
to. Exactly. Well, thanks for listening. I hope everyone has a beautiful day. And
we appreciate it.
We appreciate you so much.
Thanks, crew.
See ya.
Peace out.
Bye.